Hi folks, this video is mostly a video response to Alan's video response to my video, where Alan says he doesn't completely agree with some of the things I say about longsword hilt length. Well, first of all, I want to say my last video was incredibly long and it took me a long time to get around to the point, and I maybe wasn't 100% clear on what my point was when I started the video. But just to say that essentially I don't think Alan does disagree with me, and actually I don't think what I was trying to say there's anything really to disagree with. Okay, so what was I trying to say? Well, trying to state it in as brief a way as possible, I was simply trying to say that in modern HEMA there seems to be a fashion for lengthening the swords we're using longer hilts, longer blades and so on to give us an advantage in fighting, or simply because people are using very big gloves and find it easier to use the sword. And all I was really trying to say was that if you look at, if you study certain treatises, this might not always fit with the treatise that you're looking at. So for example, me personally, my longsword is all based on Fiore's four treatises. So for me personally, I find the Albion ringneck kind of size fits very, very well with Fiore. Okay, to give you one basic and kind of obvious example of how that should be so is in the hilt length, is that Fiore uses the sword in one hand a lot. Okay, not only does he use this sword when he's using it as a conventional longsword and he's come in and done a grab on someone, and he might administer pommel, cut, thrust in one hand. Not only does he do that, but he also uses the exact same sword on horseback as a one-handed sword, and he uses the same sword on foot as a one-handed sword. Okay, so if you look at the pictures in Fiore, for example, he seems to be using the same sword. He's not using one-handed swords and two-handed swords. He's just using the same bastard sword or hand-and-a-half sword all the way through, in one hand and in two hands, okay, for cutting and thrusting and half-swording. So, from my point of view, using a very long grip on a longsword doesn't really fit with me wanting to do Fiore longsword style. Okay, so whilst yes, it might be true if I use a feather with the longest possible blade I can manage and the longest possible hilt I can manage, it might give me some advantage in a one-on-one fight in a tournament, for example. In terms of trying to stay to the source that I'm studying, it actually is moving further away and not aiding me into getting closer into that source and understanding why he uses a certain sword a certain way. So really, the point I was trying to make was all about context. If the source that you're studying uses a big sword, use a big sword. If it doesn't use a big sword and uses something like a little bastard sword, a little hand-and-a-half sword, then use a little hand-and-a-half sword. Don't always think about what might advantage you in a modern HEMA situation. That's all I was trying to say, really. Cheers.